Here we go. It's RGA Weekly Webinar time. Doug Smith, Duane Plapp. We are back a couple minutes after 11 o'clock. And Papa Plapp, I got something that I think a lot of salespeople come across that I want to use as a topic today. And here's the base point for it. There's a franchise that I'm working with. We have 4 franchises. They're doing extremely well. The franchisees have the ability to make marketing decisions, but somebody in the corporate level decided, yeah, maybe you don't, and they have cut all ties between us and the franchisees. There's a backstory behind it, but it made me think of this topic. I'm working with the franchisees who say they have the authority, but obviously, daddy with the checkbook is corporate. So from a sales standpoint, something that people come across is they think they're talking to the ultimate decision maker when they're not. So how important is it that when you're selling, you make sure you are in front of that ultimate decision maker as opposed to 1 or 2 layers below that?
Well, the number one thing is this, and I always ask my people is this: are you a better salesperson than the person you're giving the sales pitch to if they got to go sell their boss? And if the answer is no, then you need to be talking to the boss, because guess what? If you're selling to the other person and they're going to the boss, that sales pitch is not going to be as good. They're not going to have the features that you're going to give them, or the benefits, and they're probably going to leave something out. And what's going to happen is the boss is going to get a muddled sales pitch, which probably may not, if they're not as enthusiastic about your product as you are, guess what? It may never happen. So you got to be talking to the main person. The other thing is this: maybe you're talking to the person, and he may be 3 or 4 levels down. So he's selling to his boss, who his boss is selling to the next boss, and his boss is selling to the main guy. Well, guess what? That's about like the same thing as you do when you sit in a circle and you whisper something to the person next to you. It goes around the circle. When it finally gets back to you, it ain't even close. So it's all gossip. So guess what? You got to be talking to the main person. You're wasting your time. It's like throwing a fish in the ocean, a hook in the ocean with no bait on it. Okay, you're not going to catch nothing. And so you need to be making sure you're talking to the main person. That's almost a cardinal rule in selling. Is if you're not talking to the person who can make a decision, all you're doing is you're just you're throwing air in just going into a big ocean. It's just not going to happen.
Now, one of the things that I was taught years ago, because you don't want to, I guess, offend the person you're sitting in front of, but you want to verify, are they the ultimate? One of the questions that I was taught years ago was asking, is there anyone else involved in the decision-making process that we should have included? If they say no, then you take them for their word and they're the ultimate decision maker. Same thing in this situation where it's, hey, does corporate have to approve anything? No, I can do this. Well, it comes to find out corporate can do this. So when you're sitting in front of someone, A, how do you qualify that they are the ultimate decision maker without offending them? And 2, what happens if they say yes, but there really is daddy with the paycheck is another step up and you find out later? How do you handle that?
Well, then what you want to do is you say, we need to sit down and talk to your boss. Can you arrange a meeting for all of us to get together? And the problem you have in a lot of situations like that, and this is why it's really very careful, and why it probably is a good idea if you're going to be presenting to the person who's not the person who's in charge because you didn't know, and now you find out later, is start nurturing that relationship with them so that you become almost best friends with that person. So you create a nice know, like, and trust with them, so that when you do say, hey, let's sit down with your boss, you and me together, they're all together, because a lot of times they're intimidated at that point. Okay, if you say sit down with your boss, okay, and they're going, oh my God, maybe it's not a great idea, and if you don't like it, I'm going, he's scared to death, and so I don't want to get fired because of the idea he don't like the idea. So what you got to do is create a know, like, and trust where you really get him to the point where he's as enthusiastic about your idea as you are. So all he's got to do is arrange a meeting. The other thing you might want to do is this, and I've had clients, I've had people, sales guys do this. So as you're meeting with a person and you're nurturing them, find out who you may know that is also connected with the main guy. I did that with a couple of clients about 4 years ago. They were selling a franchise situation, and they were talking to the underlings, and the underlings weren't going anywhere. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. You're doing a lot of networking. Who else do you know that works for that company? Well, ironically enough, in both situations, the guy they had friends that actually knew the guy who was the main guy, the owner. And I said, so why don't you do this? Why don't you why don't you refer me to the owner? And in both cases, that happened. In both cases, okay, they ended up making a sale because they finally got in front of the owner, but not going through the regular means with the person that was the underling, but through the other thing. And sometimes that works. But you got to, that's where the strategy comes in. You got to understand, and many times the same token, when you're going into a facility, okay, or a place, and you don't know who the person, you need to be doing some research. If you do some research, you can find out pretty close and pretty accurately whether the guy you're talking to is actually the right person, even though he says he is. He may not be. If you've done your research, you may find out that that person is 3 levels down from the guy that makes the decision. And then part of their research may be doing some networking with people who work there and find out exactly who does what, where, how, and when. Because a lot of people, for instance, if I'm 1 level down or 2 levels down from the guy that does the buying, I may think I'm in charge, but I'm really not, because I don't want you to know I'm not in charge.
Right. Nope.
It gets matters when you go to any place to make a presentation. That's why I always tell people, be prepared, do your research. The key to selling in many, many, many cases is actually having the research in place. The more research you've done, the better chance you are of closing the deal. Because now all of a sudden you may be talking to the right people and you wouldn't have been otherwise.
Makes sense. Good stuff as always, Papa Platt. So I told you I'm going to the Cubs-Reds game tonight. So go Reds.
Now, one other thing, okay?
Yeah.
It's something I talked about yesterday in my networking groups, okay? 4th of July is this weekend. So
yep.
The 4th of July, what's Independence Day mean to you?
Independence Day? Freedom.
Okay. Freedom from what? Or freedom to what?
Freedom to do basically whatever I want to do. The ability to make decisions on my own, sink or swim, but it's my decision. No one has to or has the authority to tell me what to do.
It's exactly right, okay? It's a freedom to have the opportunity to be who you want to be. In most countries, a lot of countries, actually most countries, that's not a possibility. You say one matter of fact, like in China, I was reading an article the other day, there's something like 20 million people that are in jail because they happen to disagree with the policies and the political structure of the Chinese. And perfect example, that's Hong Kong. People in Hong Kong are going nuts because the Chinese government is now, since they became part of the Chinese country, have started making all kinds of new rules that these guys didn't have before. They had freedom. They no longer have freedom, and they're upset big time. So the people in America, as what's his face used to say, wake up, America! We got a lot of freedom, baby, and that's what America's got, is the opportunity to have that freedom.
Amen. Couldn't say it any better, man. You and Mama Plapp have a good 4th cruising around the lake in your golf cart, and you guys be safe. And I'm sure we will chat again next week, sir.
Cha-ching, baby.
See ya. Bye-bye.